Hola clase, buenos días. Feliz jueves. Hoy es el 3 de septiembre de 2020. Hoy vamos a aprender el vocabulario de capítulo 2 de la novela. We're going to learn chapter 2, novel vocab. Vamos a leer el capítulo 2. We're going to read chapter 2 y completar las actividades en el cuaderno de capítulo 2. So we're also going to complete chapter 2 activities in our notebooks, just like we did for chapter 1, the comprehension questions, and your listening dictation, preguntas de comprensión y transcripción de escuchar. This is not something you're turning in today. You need to keep it for later, but make sure that you're doing it because it looks like the first notebook activity that I had you guys turn in for points, a lot of you did not complete it, and so you're losing points whenever you're not doing your work, even if you're not turning it in that day. We're also going to be writing our vocab for capítulo 2 in our cuadernos, and also un repaso de capítulo 1. We're also going to do a quick review of chapter 1. So here is our novela, Piratas del Caribe y el mapa secreto. If you would like to purchase your own copy, you can click here. It's about $7, but check the shipping times because we're only going to be in the novel for like 3 weeks to a month. Just a reminder that your notebook needs to be set up like this for each of your chapters. We went over that Tuesday, I believe. So each chapter that we have, you need your name in the chapter at the top. Vocab, you're going to have it in English and Spanish. The vocab from the novel that I give you. Your comprehension questions, you're going to answer them here in full sentences. And you're going to end up having a summary, un resumen in español, because you're going to have a listening dictation that I'm going to read and you're going to listen to, and you'll write it out in Spanish as you hear it. So if you did not yesterday get chapter 1 vocab in your notebook, make sure that you do. Quick review: el hombre is man, la mujer, the woman, el mar, the sea, la novia, girlfriend, you had that in first year, la plata, silver, el barco, boat, la flota is a fleet or a group of ships, and then our verb phrases were le importa, it's important to him or her, or it matters to him or her, and le gusta, it's pleasing to him or he or she likes. Here is where our novel is taking place, in what is today Mexico. In the novel, they call it Nueva España, New Spain, because Spain had just recently taken over this territory. And then here's Cuba, República Dominicana, and then way over here, far off past the ocean, is España, Spain, where some of our characters are from. Quick review of Capítulo 1. We met Pirata Henry Morgan, Capitán, un hombre que se llama Antonio Medina y su novia Raquel. Hay un mapa secreto, todos quieren el mapa secreto, Henry quiere el mapa, Antonio quiere el mapa, todas las personas buscan el mapa. Y estamos en Veracruz, Nueva España, so we're in Veracruz, New Spain, which is now Mexico. Y Antonio Medina prepara su flota, his fleet, para viajar, para transportar la plata. ¿Sí? Y sabemos que Henry Morgan es un pirata horrible, muy violenta, es muy famoso y rico, etc. So it's just a quick review of chapter 1. So chapter 2, let's go ahead and write down these vocab words in our notebook before we read. So please, pardon. Please be sure to, let me move this pencil for you, just reminding you to write them in your notebook. Please be sure to write these in your notebook and to divide them under the categories. So there's suelo is a noun, that's a thing. It means the ground. Kind of looks like soil on the ground. Verbs: llama, he or she calls. It can be like a phone call, it can be like yell at somebody, llama. I think that's how we're going to use it in the novel chapter today. And it can also mean like when you say me llamo, you're really saying I call myself. So llamar is really the verb that we use to talk about names. Perdón. Interrumpe, he or she interrupts. All of these verbs, llama, interrumpe, if they end in an A or an E and it doesn't have a specific subject, then it means it's the he or she form, which you guys learned in first year. The he or she forms end in an A or an E. But then if we throw in something like they, then we are reminding you that that does not refer to he or she. Caminan, I think you've learned the verb caminar in first year, means they walk, since it ends in an N. Buscan also ends in an N, referring to they look for. I just used that verb. Tira, he or she throws. And se parte, it breaks or it parts itself. The se here is a reflexive pronoun. It can mean oneself or itself. Prepositions, frente a, facing or across from, kind of looks like in front of. That's really a different phrase. It would be en frente de. But if you're in front of something and it looks like frente a, looks like in front of. If you're in front of something, you're facing it or you're across from it usually. And then, oops, I forgot these are also verb phrases. I'm sorry. These go with these. Pone means he or she puts, like places. And está confuso, he or she is feeling confused. So if you need to, feel free to pause this if you need more time to write. And here is where our chapter 2 takes place. Here is Cuba. So we're going to be in the country of Cuba. Here's El Capital, Havana, or La Habana, y Puerto del Príncipe. It translates to Port of the Prince. It's really just a port city in Cuba. Here is La Flota Española, the Spanish fleet, the group of ships that es de Antonio. Antonio is going to be leading them. Here is our mapa secreto y una pistola, so something's going to happen with the gun and the map. And then we're going to meet some new people, Felipe y Carlos, and of course, la novia de Antonio, Raquel, is going to be in our chapter as well. So I'm going to be referring back to this picture as needed as we're reading. And notice here, una canoa y las rocas. So we're going to have a canoe and some rocks somewhere in our chapter. So your preguntas de comprensión, as we are reading, you're going to need to make sure that you are thinking about the answers to these questions in English, and I will be pausing and coming back to them as needed. So answer in English. Why does Antonio call, as in like shout out to him, to his pilot Felipe, the guy driving the boat? What does Carlos do that annoys Antonio? Why is Felipe confused when Antonio tells him where the fleet is going? What does Antonio's fleet do when they are across from La Habana, or facing or in front of it? Again, I'll refer back to the map. How long do Antonio and his men walk to Puerto del Príncipe? What do Antonio and his men look for when they get there? What does Antonio see on the ground at the market? What does Antonio put on the table for this item? What does Antonio do with the item when he tries it out? And what happens to the item, and what does he find? So these are the questions you're going to be answering in English on your notebook page. So right underneath your vocab. So if you look again at how you should be setting up your pages, just like we went over the other day, your vocab for chapter 2 should be here. Right underneath it, you should be answering your preguntas de comprensión in English, unless I tell you differently. And then we'll do a little dictation at the end. So you're going to read along as I read chapter 2 to you, and we'll be coming back to these questions here. See? Okay, so we left off, this was the end of chapter 1. We had just met Raquel, la novia de Antonio, and here is capítulo 2, una pistola especial. Es el 8 de abril de 1670 en el barco de Antonio. So that's just letting us know when it is and where we're at to set the scene. Antonio llama, there's one of our new words, llama, a su piloto Felipe. Felipe, vamos a mi cabina, por favor. Cabina looks like cabin, like his room, his little captain room in the ship. Sí, ahorita voy, dice Felipe. Y Antonio responde, llama a Carlos también, vamos a hacer planes. Y Felipe le dice, sí, capitán, ahorita vamos. So he's saying, right now, we're coming. Felipe llama a Carlos, Carlos, y los dos caminan, another new word, y Carlos, or a la cabina, y Carlos habla y habla. Me gusta la cabina de Antonio. Vamos a celebrar. So this is Carlos hablando. No, vamos a hacer planes. ¿Planes? ¿Antonio tiene un plan para una fiesta? ¿O es un plan de navegación? Felipe no le responde. Felipe no habla mucho porque es una persona reservada. ¿Sí? También es muy serio. Felipe es reservado, serio. Pero Carlos, al contrario, on the other hand, habla y habla. Él es muy sociable y a él le gusta mucho hablar. So again, our first comprehension questions that you want to be trying to answer in English are, why does Antonio call his pilot Felipe? So basically, what's he tell him that they're going to do? Or what's he tell him to do and why? What does Carlos do that annoys Antonio? Why is Felipe confused when Antonio tells him where the fleet is going? So that's the next question we're going to be looking for. Okay, but we just learned a little bit about Felipe y Carlos. Alright, cuando Felipe y Carlos entran en la cabina, Antonio y Raquel están mirando un mapa del Caribe. Antonio mira el mapa, pero Carlos interrumpe, there's one of our new vocab words, interrumpe su concentración con sus preguntas. Antonio le dice, Carlos, ya, silencio, escucha. Hay un rumor in Veracruz. And in case you didn't see, whenever there's a little number at the top, at the bottom it tells you what it means. Hay un rumor en Veracruz. El rumor indica que el mapa está en Puerto del Príncipe, Cuba. We're talking about this mapa secreto. Quiero investigar el rumor. Quiero ir a Puerto del Príncipe. So if we go back to our map, where'd my mapa go? Oh, here's Veracruz. They're in Veracruz. And so that is in New Spain, or Mexico. But the rumor indicates that the map is in Port of the Prince, Cuba, which is over here. Felipe está confuso. ¿Huh? Y le dice, pero la flota española no va a Puerto del Príncipe, la flota va a La Habana. So, Felipe is just insinuating or reminding Antonio that our fleet doesn't go to Puerto del Príncipe. Our fleet stops in the capital of Cuba, which is at this part of Cuba. Because they stop in La Habana and then they go off to Spain to transport the silver. But Puerto del Príncipe is out of the way. And that's not where they go, normally. Eres tonto, le responde Antonio. Tonto means dumb or stupid. Ellos observan dónde está La Habana en el mapa. También observan Puerto del Príncipe en el mapa. So they're looking at the different locations of the two cities, like I just showed you. Antonio le dice, amigos, tengo un plan. Cuando los barcos de la flota estén directamente al norte de La Habana, Cuba, mi barco va a tener un problema. ¿Tu barco va a tener un problema? Le pregunta Felipe. Felipe es un poco estúpido, ¿sí? Antonio está frustrado porque Felipe no comprende rápidamente. Antonio le explica, en realidad mi barco no va a tener un problema. Es una excusa. So we've got so many cognates here. In reality, it's an excuse. Vamos a pretender que existe un problema. La flota va a continuar a La Habana, Cuba, pero mi barco no. Mi barco se va a separar de la flota. Y vamos a ir a Puerto del Príncipe. Brillante, es un plan magnífico, exclama Carlos. So what he's saying here is they're going to pretend like their boat has a problem, and that they can't make the full journey. And so the rest of the fleet of ships is going to continue on like normal, and they're going to act like they're going back home, but they're going to go back. They're going to go to Puerto del Príncipe. So they're in Veracruz, Nueva España. They're going to start their journey here to Puerto del Príncipe. I'm sorry, to La Habana, the capital where they normally go. But his boat's going to have a problem. So they're going to act like they're going home and continue this way. See? Let's take a look again at our questions for Capítulo 2. Okay, why is Felipe confused when Antonio tells him where the fleet is going? What does Antonio's fleet do when they are across from La Habana? And then what we're coming up next on is how long do Antonio and his men walk to Puerto del Príncipe? And what do Antonio and his men look for when they get there? Ok, finalmente todo está preparado y todos los hombres abordan el barco. El barco de Antonio va con la flota española. La flota va a Cuba y cuando está frente a La Habana, so in front of or facing, that's one of our new vocab words, el barco de Antonio se separa de la flota y el barco continúa en dirección a Puerto del Príncipe. All right, now here we are in Puerto del Príncipe, Cuba. So the ships, la flota está en La Habana, pero el barco de Antonio está en Puerto del Príncipe. Aquí. ¿Sí? Okay. El barco de Antonio pasa frente a la costa norte de Cuba. Antonio y su grupo van a la costa en canoas porque hay muchas rocas. El barco grande no puede pasar por las rocas. So here's el barco grande, van en canoas porque son pequeñas, porque hay muchas rocas muy grandes, ¿sí? En el agua, ¿sí? En la costa, Antonio y sus hombres se preparan a caminar a Puerto del Príncipe. Caminan 2 días y por fin llegan a Puerto del Príncipe. En Puerto del Príncipe, Antonio y sus hombres buscan el mapa. Buscan el mapa por muchos días. Las personas de Puerto del Príncipe no quieren hablar del mapa. No quieren conflictos. Antonio está frustrado porque no tiene información del mapa. Exclama, ¡ay! Los cubanos no quieren hablar del mapa. Necesitamos un plan. Sí, necesitamos un plan, le responde Felipe. Antonio le dice, más tarde vamos al restaurante para hablar de un plan. ¿Por qué no vamos ahora? Antonio le dice, porque ahora vamos al mercado. Al mercado. ¿Por qué vamos al mercado? Porque quiero ver las pistolas. Raquel, can't forget about Raquel, she's been here this whole time, está contenta y exclama, ¡perfecto! Yo necesito zapatos. Felipe le responde, y yo necesito un telescopio. Ellos van al mercado y están contentos. Hay frutas, vegetales y muchos objetos, muchas cosas. También hay pistolas y zapatos. Raquel se separa del grupo y va a ver los zapatos. Antonio, Felipe y Carlos van a ver las pistolas. Observan a una mujer, a woman, que tiene una colección de muchas pistolas. Antonio mira una pistola, pero no es la pistola que busca. Le dice a la mujer, no me gusta. Quiero una pistola especial. Antonio mira todas las pistolas, pero a él no le gustan las pistolas. Entonces, él mira una pistola que está en el suelo. There's our new word, el suelo, on the ground. Nota que es una pistola especial y le dice a la mujer, me gusta la pistola que está en el suelo. Quiero esta pistola. No, no, esta pistola no. Esta pistola es de mi esposo. So that's her husband's gun, so he can't have that one. Entonces, Antonio pone mucha plata, mucho dinero, en la mesa y le ofrece la plata a la mujer. La mujer está contenta y le dice, está bien. So I guess for enough plata, she'd sell it. Her husband's gonna be a little mad. Entonces, la mujer toma la plata y Antonio toma la pistola. Contentos, los tres hombres se van para buscar un telescopio. Ellos caminan un poco y Antonio quiere usar la pistola. Apunta, he points, con la pistola al suelo. Points it at the ground. Pero no pasa nada. Solo hay un clic. ¡Ay! ¡Qué problema! ¡Esta pistola no funciona! Antonio está furioso y tira la pistola al suelo. Perdón, tira, that's one of our new words. Y la pistola se parte. Se parte. Hay dos partes de la pistola en el suelo. Antonio mira la pistola y la observa. Hay una nota en la pistola. Antonio toma la pistola y saca la nota de la pistola. ¡Es un mapa! El mapa dice agua de vida. Antonio exclama, ¡fantástico! ¡Increíble! ¡Tengo el mapa de la isla secreta! Antonio mira a las personas en el mercado. Hay muchas personas. ¿Es posible que una persona observe que Antonio tiene el mapa? Antonio pone el mapa en la pistola y les dice a Carlos y Felipe, voy al restaurante para preparar el plan. Ustedes busquen un telescopio y nos vemos en el restaurante en 15 minutos. Antonio va al restaurante y Carlos y Felipe buscan el telescopio. Buscan por unos minutos y entonces hay caos en Puerto del Príncipe. Dun, dun, dun. To be continued. Let's take a look at what other questions we were looking for. Okay, so how long did they walk to Puerto del Príncipe? What do Antonio and his men look for when they get there? What does Antonio see on the ground at the market? What does Antonio put on the table for the item? What does Antonio do with the item when he tries it out? And what happens to the item and what does he find? So there was an item in the gun, like hidden in this fake gun. See? Remember to use your vocab words. These are going to be part of your answers or help you with your answers. See? Okay, so if you still need to work on that, feel free to pause. But we're going to go ahead and move on to your dictation, so your listening practice. So the last part of your notebook for Chapter 2 will be your resumen en español, your summary at the bottom. So you are going to be listening. You're going to listen to the sentences that you hear me say, write them exactly as you hear them in Spanish. So your answers to the comprehension questions were in English. These are now in Spanish. You're just writing exactly what you hear. Work on transferring what we hear in Spanish to what it looks like on the page. I'm going to give you 3 paragraphs. They're going to be kind of short. Circle all the words that you find that you copied from chapter 2 vocab. And I will give you the first word or words of each chapter. And let me pull up my paragraph. Okay, paragraph 1. En el barco, that's your first phrase for paragraph 1. En el barco, Antonio llama a Felipe y Carlos. En el barco, Antonio llama a Felipe y Carlos para hablar sobre su plan. Para hablar sobre su plan. So that first sentence all together is, en el barco, Antonio llama a Felipe y Carlos para hablar sobre su plan. And if at any time I'm going too fast or you need to rewind, just pause and go back. Next sentence, Carlos interrumpe a Antonio y Felipe. Carlos interrumpe a Antonio y Felipe está confuso. Felipe está confuso. So again, that full sentence is, Carlos interrumpe a Antonio y Felipe está confuso. So that was the beginning of the sentence, second sentence, and the last sentence for paragraph 1. Starting with Antonio. Antonio está frustrado con ellos. Antonio está frustrado con ellos. So that is paragraph 1. The whole paragraph 1 sounds like this. En el barco, Antonio llama a Felipe y Carlos para hablar sobre su plan. Carlos interrumpe a Antonio y Felipe está confuso. Antonio está frustrado con ellos. Moving on to paragraph 2. Starting with el barco de Antonio. El barco de Antonio se separa de la flota frente a Habana, Cuba. Again, el barco de Antonio se separa de la flota frente a Habana, Cuba. Next sentence, starting with Antonio y sus hombres. Antonio y sus hombres caminan a Puerto del Príncipe. Antonio y sus hombres caminan a Puerto del Príncipe y buscan el mapa. Again, that second sentence in paragraph 2. Antonio y sus hombres caminan a Puerto del Príncipe y buscan el mapa. Last sentence of paragraph 3, starting with nadie tiene. Nadie tiene información del mapa. Nadie tiene información del mapa. So that second paragraph altogether is, el barco de Antonio se separa de la flota frente a Habana, Cuba. Antonio y sus hombres caminan a Puerto del Príncipe y buscan el mapa. Nadie tiene información del mapa. And our last paragraph, starting with Antonio va con. Antonio va con sus hombres a un mercado. Antonio va con sus hombres a un mercado. Next sentence, starting with compra. Compra una pistola. That one's nice and short. Compra una pistola. Pero, next sentence, pero la pistola no es buena. Pero la pistola no es buena. Next sentence, Antonio tira la pistola al suelo. Antonio tira la pistola al suelo y se parte. Next sentence, ve un mapa en el suelo. Ve un mapa en el suelo. Last sentence, Lo pone en su pistola. Lo pone en su pistola. So that last paragraph one more time. Antonio va con sus hombres a un mercado. Compra una pistola. Pero la pistola no es buena. Antonio tira la pistola al suelo y se parte. Ve un mapa en el suelo. Lo pone en su pistola. El fin. El fin de capítulo 2. So that is all for chapter 2. Make sure that you have finished and feel free to rewind, go back as you need to make sure that you have completed your vocab for chapter 2, preguntas de comprensión, answering those in English, and resumen en español, your Spanish summary that you just listened to and wrote down in Spanish. So hold on to this. You are not turning this in today. You are just keeping it in your notebook, and then on Monday, just like we did this week with last week's notebook work, this coming Monday, I will be asking for specific pages, and they need to be done. And then you want to make sure that you're staying caught up so that you don't fall behind. And as always, escríbeme preguntas. Si necesitan algo, if you need anything, just email me or send me a Google Hangout. Buena suerte.